All right, Halion 7 is here, and in this video I want to walk you through one of the coolest features of this new update for the sampler. So Halion has been around for a really long time. I actually remember when it first came out, and it even had this little sort of symbol on the bottom that looked kind of like HAL from 2001. And so that's why I always call it Halion. I'm not sure if it's Halion or something like that. I've heard all sorts of different versions of the term, but I call it Halion. The coolest new feature, in my opinion, is this new addition of an FM zone. So they've added FM synthesis capabilities to the software. Up till now, we've had other zones like the wavetable zone, the sampler zone, the most obvious one, and synthesis zones. So there's a bunch of different ways of making sounds with the software. It's not meant to be just a sampler. And so then, of course, you can combine all these different sources of sound generation to make your own custom patches. That's what's so powerful about it. And then it also has the ability to make your own little synthesizers. FM synthesis, why is it so exciting? Well, I'm wearing the shirt, I've got the synthesizer right here. I've got a record by one of my favorites, Jean-Michel Jarre. This synthesizer was a huge part of making music in the 80s. And I picked up a DX7 at a pawn shop several years ago. They're not making them anymore, so having some of these old antiques is kind of fun. And what I want to do here first is just show you this FM zone, and then we're also going to look at this FM lab, which is a really nicely laid out FM instrument that they've got built into Halion 7. It's just got a bunch of really great patches. So we're going to play through some of the patches, and then I'm just going to make some music with it and just show you what it's capable of. And full disclosure, Steinberg did send me the software. This is a sponsored video. So let's start with the DX7, and I'm going to show you how they've modeled the DX7 into the FM synthesis capabilities of Halion 7, but then of course they've gone above and beyond that. So it's not just meant to be a note for note, sound for sound copy of the DX7, but they've got the Yamaha engineers working for Steinberg, of course, because it's a Yamaha-owned company, and they were there to design the software from the ground up to be just like the DX7. So let's have a look at some of the patches on the DX7 and compare them to what we get in Halion 7. So I'm going to start from scratch here with a fresh Halion 7. We're going to go over to the program, and we're just going to add a new layer, and we're going to go over to the zone icon right here. We're going to click Create Zone, and now we can see the FM zone pops up with the other ones. So we had the synth zone, which has all the basics of subtractive synthesis. We've got the sample zone, granular zone, organ zone, wavetable zone, which also has some new capabilities, and the spectral zone, which is also an updated feature of Halion 7. So I'm going to add an FM zone right there, and we're going to drag this program into the slot rack. We can click on the edit button to see this new FM zone. So now we've got our default patch loaded up right here, with some of the basic things like our envelope, so we can play with the attack and the release. So here under voice control, we've got things like unison, glide. We've got the pitch, where we can decide how many semitones we want for the pitch bend. This is the FM oscillator section, where we can go and make further adjustments to the oscillator and import algorithms or create our own algorithms. And FM synthesis is all about these algorithms. That's how the DX7 made all of its original patches. And you can actually see the algorithms it's got available to you up on top. There's a big drawing on the top of the synthesizer. The Halion version, of course, we can take things a lot further. We can import algorithms, we can save our own algorithms, and then here we can choose different algorithms as well. And then we can import patches right here. So we're going to compare the original DX7 patches to the ones on the Halion 7 and see how close they are. So I've downloaded these off the internet. If you just look for DX7 patches online, you'll find a bunch of ancient websites with questionable authenticity, so you can proceed at your own risk. Okay, so I found base 1 on my DX7. So you can hear my tuning's a little off, so I can see if I can fix that. I'm going to go to Master Tune Adjust. I may have a few things off, so I got to admit I might have a few parameters that aren't quite tweaked the right way, but let's compare some patches. So there's our bass. You can hear some noise present in the DX7 that isn't present in the real one. That's the kind of fun thing that you get with actual hardware. Let's try another patch. Go to brass 1. Sounds a little brighter on the new one. Pretty close. Let's try another patch. Let's go to strings 1. Man, that is really quite impressive. Electric piano, this is what we're all here for. E piano 1. There's some noise in there. So it's a little cleaner, a little more clinical with the new one, but man, that is extremely close. So for a note-for-note emulation of the real DX7, I think this is going to get you pretty close. Let me go to a different folder and we'll see if we can find some other patches off the internet. In this import menu, I just found my folder that has all of my DX7 patches, and it's called All the Web, DX7 All the Web. And there's like, I don't know, 10,000 patches or something in here. So I'm going to go through and let's look for a Jarre look. This is another Jean-Michel Jarre album. So we're going to try some of these patches out. So who knows how close these are to the original patches, right? I don't know who made these, but we're talking about thousands of patches. If you're new to FM synthesis, this is going to be a great place for you to start and learn about it, try out different patches. So now what I want to look at is FM Lab, which is this new instrument that comes with Halion 7. So we're going to go over there, try some patches out, and I'm just going to make a little ditty out of it that sounds kind of like, you know, Jean-Michel Jarre, or maybe at least could come from that world. So here I've got a project with some inspiration, and this kind of got me going, okay, I need to make an actual little idea out of this. So we're going to start with those patches, but before I even do that, let's just look at what FM Lab looks like when you pop it open. So with the new Halion 7 here, all I have to do is go over to the browser. I'm just going to click on FM Lab. I can search for patches through this browser, which is a really nice way to look for sounds. I can just go synth lead, and then now we're just looking at the synth leads over here, and just double click and we can hear a patch. I also grew up listening to Ray Lynch, and if you want to hear an amazing album that I think was done with almost entirely FM synthesis, Ray Lynch, and the album is called Deep Breakfast. I have it on vinyl. It's just a beautiful, beautiful album. I'd play it for you here, but you know, copyright and all that. I love the look and layout of their instruments. They're getting really nice with their design. It's got very little skeuomorphism, which I'm not a big fan of. Nice flat view, and the text is easily readable. Click on the ARP tab. So here we can see the notes of this little preset that's happening, and I could change this one to 12, and now it's going to go. And with this, we're using semitone. 12 is going to be an octave, 7 is going to be the fifth, so if you're playing a C, you'll hear the G. And it looks like we can swing things. Let's crank this up. So if you've got a bit of a hip-hoppy kind of thing, this swing is going to matter a lot. It looks like these lanes down here have different destinations. So right now it's set to FM operator 2 level. Let's see what happens if we drag this down. There's some seriously fun patches. These are great sounds. So let's go to a soft pad. Okay, so let's see if we can figure out what's happening here. We can see some modulation happening, which is beautiful. There's a lot of synthesizers out there that don't give you sort of a real-time feedback of what is changing and how it's changing. You just kind of have to hear it. So I do love that we're seeing some animations on here. Let's go over to the matrix here and see if we can figure out what's causing amplitude level to pulse. So right now we've got, looks like we've got a step modulator that's, so as I adjust it, now we can see it's going way further up and down. And then we can turn it down a little bit, so now it's very subtle. And then we can go the other way, so it's going to invert the level. So it's dropping it instead of pushing it up. So now if I click on the step modulator, let's go over to this one right here. We can see that it's syncing 8 steps to the tempo and it's at 16ths. What if we put it to 30 seconds? Right? So you can very quickly get a sense of what is changing what on your patches just by looking at things like the matrix. So you go over to the matrix, see what it's affecting, and then go over to that other thing and figure out how to change it. So maybe it's not rhythmically pulsing with the song the right way. Very easy to go in here and change stuff around. So this kind of warrants an entire video where we go through each one of these parameters. Let me know if you want to see a video like that in the future. What I'm going to do now is go over and show you some of these patches that I've found, and I'm just going to make a piece of music out of it. So let's go over to the first patch. So this is the Hawk clavinet. You'll see that we've got some macros down at the bottom that give us things like some of your delay and reverb that's already built into the patch. And then we've got some other parameters that have been assigned to them at the bottom. And this is what I've got so far for it. So it's a bit of a mess, but this is kind of how I write stuff. I pull up a patch, I get kind of inspired, and then I start something off. So I'm going to take all of this and just move it over to the right-hand side, toss that over there. Now I'm going to start from scratch and start playing this in and just refine this little section a little bit. So I'm going to turn the click on. Okay, next patch I've got from Halion 7 here is the Harmless Riser. You know what? I had a fun little idea there and I wasn't recording, but it was neat. So I'm going to press Shift Star and it's going to pull up everything I just played for the last, little while until I did something. That's retrospective record. Look how powerful this feature is. These are the chords I just came up with without playing to a click track. So my first chord went. I'm loving this. What if I would have forgotten that little idea, right? So I'm going to clean this up just a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag that over to where this whole thing starts. And I'm just going to manipulate this information until it lines up with the other idea. So let's take this one right here. I'm going to quantize that, move it over. Let's have a listen and see how this is lining up. It's not going to be perfect because I wasn't playing to a click track. I was just playing freely. But this is kind of a mind-blowing feature of Cubase. All right. Okay, so I've got my notes all just by, tweaking my little idea. Of course, maybe a better thing would have just been to listen to it, learn it, and then play it in. But sometimes you just get that inspiration and you just want to keep what you had in that initial playthrough. So, okay. And then the drums are Drum Loops Factory 2. So let me just pull that one up from scratch so you can see what it sounds like. So you can hear these different sounds laid out of the keyboard. So we kind of have like a kick and a snare. And so what's happening with the ARP tab, when we turn that on, it's cycling through different semitones. So if you start here, the first one will be -2 semitones from where you are. And then the next one will be an octave above. If I start higher up, we get this. If I start in the middle, start to get some of those kick drums. And go lower. It's pretty cool. So different way of sequencing drums just by the nature of where these sounds are laid out on the keyboard. So what I did for this one is I just shortened it to 12 steps because I've kind of got like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 thing happening, even though it says 4, 4. I wanted a pattern that worked with what I have with this kind of triplet thing that's happening with the Hawk clav. So that's what I got for the drums. This is what I ended up with. And if I want that even more intense, what I could do is go over to the ARP tab. So we're getting some different sounds here with this one modulation source right here. Hear that? Change it up, get more percussive, brighter. Getting more bassy now. So let's see how that sounds with everything else in there. You know what'd be so cool is if I duplicate this one, and then I'm gonna put this one on the high sounds. So we're gonna go, just leave that. So now we've got our drums high and our drums low. Let's just put a bass sound in there. So I'm gonna go Halion 7, we'll go to the FM lab, and we're just gonna go to bass, and let's just try a couple of these out. Kind of perfect. Kind of had some house vibes to it. I love it. Oh man, there's so many good ones in here. All right, we got our bass. So then the last thing I'm going to do is just put in some lead stuff. And before I do, let's just try Chiffy flute. Oh, that sounds nice too. Play you out, and then hopefully this can help you decide if this is something you want to pick up. Hit me up in the comments with any thoughts on this new addition to Halion 7. And if you're new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell, and I'll see you in the next video.